Board of Aldermen to order on Tuesday, February 18th, 2025, at 7 p.m. here in the Aldermanic Chamber. The prayer will be offered by City Clerk Dan Healy, and Alderwoman at Large Shoshana Kelly will lead us in the pledge to the flag.
Almighty God, we have the high honor and the serious duty to manage the affairs of our beloved city. Fill us, O God, with a spirit of unity and understanding which enables us to face our multiple problems with a serene mind, with justice and charity for all, so that any and all decisions made by us will always be for the betterment and greater happiness of all our fellow citizens. So help us God. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance, please.
Alderman O'Brien. Alderwoman Timmons.
Here.
Alderman Moran. Alderman Thibodeau.
Here.
Alderman Govea.
Here.
Alderman Lopez. Alderman Sullivan.
Here.
Alderman Clemmons. Alderman Senate. Alderman Jettie.
Here.
Alderman Tebow.
Here.
Alderman Clee.
Here.
Alderman Dowd.
Present.
Alderwoman Kelly.
Here.
Alderman Wilshire.
Here.
10 present, 5 absent.
Note that Alderman O'Brien is still recovering, and Alderman Senate had a conflict with a family conflict this evening. Well, also joining us this evening are Mayor Jim Donchis and Corporation Counsel Steve Bolton. Mayor, I'd like to recognize you for your State of the City address.
All right, well, thank you, Madam President. Well, good evening, President Wilshire and members of the Board of Aldermen. Superintendent Andrade, School Superintendent Andrade, Police Chief Rourke, Deputies Kenny and Fay, members of our city staff and directors, and all my fellow Nashwans. Each year, in the State of the City address, I try to focus on the significant issues that the city is facing. This year, I want to address the connection between a lack of adequate and constitutionally required state funding for our public schools and high property taxes. I want to speak to our work to create more housing and talk about the substantial upgrading of our streets, our parks, and other infrastructure. But first, the recent California wildfires remind us that the major responsibility of local government is to keep our community safe. Nashua has been recognized repeatedly as one of the safest cities in the United States. Thank you to our police officers and firefighters for the dedication and bravery you show day in and day out in working on behalf of all Nashuans. This past year, working with Fire Chief Steve Buxton, we added a new state-of-the-art traffic control technology that provides the green light and therefore intersection right-of-way to fire engines as they rush to emergency calls. This preemption system increases safety for firefighters and automobile drivers alike. Working with Police Chief Kevin Rourke, we are now completing the upgrade of a new police training facility on Riverside Drive. And we strongly support the PD's recent wide net recruitment approach of bringing in as many new hires, certified officers from other smaller departments in the region. Before I go further, let me say clearly that the state of the city of Nashua is strong and improving. With a low unemployment rate and new companies moving to our city, our economy offers opportunity for our residents. Our housing shortage is a challenge that we continue to face, But an underlying cause of this issue is that people want to move here, and our residents want to stay right here in Nashua. The bottom line is that the city of Nashua is a very desirable place to live, work, and raise a family. Still, in these times of division and discord, we need to continue to seek more cooperation, more compromise, and more collaboration. And we need to use common sense to arrive at solutions which revitalize, renew, and reinvent our community. There will be significant hardship if the Trump administration follows through on the cuts in federal programs and funding that they have threatened. Basic and vital city services, which have been in place for decades, could be drastically affected. 6 of our elementary schools receive federal Department of Education Title I funds to pay for 50 teachers. And we could not run the Nashua Transit bus system, which many people rely on to get to work, get to medical appointments, and use for shopping, without the transportation dollars which come from Washington. The cleanup of the polluted Mohawk Tannery site, our $7 million de-leading grant, the Walnut Street Oval rebuild, and various other projects could be derailed. And the expanded Medicaid dollars provided under the Affordable Care Act, which thousands of Nashuans rely on for basic health care, could be at risk. We are working with our federal delegation, our nonprofits, and our health care providers to monitor the situation closely. High property taxes continue to be a problem for our residents, especially for struggling families living paycheck to paycheck and for those on fixed incomes. But we must acknowledge that high property taxes and the lack of adequate school funding from the state of New Hampshire are closely tied. The largest expenditure that our city makes is the cost of providing an education to our young people, an education that prepares them for careers, for college, and a meaningful life. Before I get into school funding, I want to congratulate Principal Aaron Anderson and the students, teachers, and staff at Sunset Heights Elementary School for being selected as one of 2 distinguished schools in the state of New Hampshire. Their dedication, hard work, and enthusiasm led to a new commitment to learning and increased test scores. Last month, when I went to the ceremony at the school celebrating this honor, Senator Maggie Hassan asked the students, "Who likes math?" I was amazed at how many hands shot up. Then, "Who likes reading?" And again, many eager hands. What I saw with these kids is a true joy in learning. Now, on the subject of school aid to public education, the state of New Hampshire provides the lowest percentage of per student financial aid to local schools of all 50 states. Largely as a result of this state policy, property taxes continue to be a serious problem for New Hampshire cities and towns and for property taxpayers across our state. Here in New England, since our colonial days, we have recognized the important connection between public education and the project of building and maintaining a successful national republic. Founding fathers Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, and James Madison all recognized that education is the means by which young people of modest means, and not part of any aristocracy based upon family wealth or privilege, can rise and succeed. In 1993, the New Hampshire Supreme Court considered whether the New Hampshire Constitution, the state constitution, requires the state government to support and pay for public education. In the landmark Claremont decision, our Supreme Court held that under Part 2, Article 83 of the New Hampshire Constitution, that the state has the legal duty, quote, to provide an adequate education to every educable child in the public schools in New Hampshire and to guarantee adequate funding. 4 years later, the New Hampshire Supreme Court, in the follow-on Claremont II decision, held that the right of each child to an adequate education is a, quote, fundamental right, unquote. Yet despite this legal mandate, the New Hampshire legislature over the last 30 years has refused to come even close to guaranteeing New Hampshire children this fundamental right. There has been much subsequent litigation. The strategy of the New Hampshire legislature seems to have been delay, delay, delay. During the current school year, the average cost of educating a student across all of the cities and towns of New Hampshire is over $21,000. This average figure tells us what an adequate education actually costs. Yet the New Hampshire legislature provides only $4,100 in so-called adequacy aid, plus a little extra in school districts which have a high proportion of students who come from poor families. That is, students who qualify for free and reduced lunch. In New Hampshire, there is a broad consensus that $21,000 per student per year is what it takes to provide an adequate education. Not only have city councils and boards of aldermen supported this level of expenditure, but voters at town meetings across the state have as well. Most recently, in the Conval School District case, in which Nashua was one of the plaintiffs, represented by City Attorney Steve Bolden, Judge David Ruoff of the New Hampshire Superior Court held that, quote, the current allocation of $4,100 per pupil is unconstitutional. Of course, the state of New Hampshire has appealed this decision. Again, delay, delay, delay. In the oral argument before the New Hampshire Supreme Court back in December, the Attorney General's office actually suggested that the cost of school buildings is not part and not necessary for an adequate education. After our experience with remote learning during the pandemic, I believe we can say without doubt that school buildings are a necessary part of an adequate education. Actually, the property tax rate in Nashua at $15.90 per thousand is lower than most of the other cities in New Hampshire. Manchester's tax rate is $19.58. Concord's is over $22. Dover's is over $27, and Keens is over $33. Yet, property taxes here in Nashua are still high. Just imagine what property taxes would be here in Nashua if the state were to meet its constitutional obligation to pay for an adequate education. If the legislature provided to Nashua Public Schools the state average cost of $21,000 per student in adequacy aid, the property tax in Nashua would drop by more than 60%, saving the average Nashua taxpayer at least $4,200 per year. So if you want to get to the root of high property taxes, look to Concord. The main sources of revenue for the state of New Hampshire are business taxes. The business profits tax, or the BET, the business enterprise, or the BET. In recent years, the legislature has cut these business taxes. Additionally, to reduce state revenues even further, the state legislature, beginning this past January 1, eliminated the interest and dividends tax, a tax paid mostly by wealthy individuals. The New Hampshire Fiscal Policy Institute, a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization, has determined that the cuts in business taxes have neither attracted new businesses or new jobs to the state of New Hampshire, nor have they increased economic activity as a whole. The Fiscal Policy Institute has estimated that in 2022, 3 years ago, the reduction of these business taxes caused a loss of state revenue of between $154 and $226 million per year. And on top of that, the lost revenue from the now eliminated interest and dividends tax is about $185 million a year. It is principally large corporations that pay the BPT and the BET, Walmart, Target, BAE, and it is principally wealthy people who used to pay the interest and dividends tax. So it has been the policy of state government to cut taxes for big businesses and rich individuals instead of helping municipalities and struggling middle-class families with property tax relief. These changes in New Hampshire state policy have resulted in a loss of annual revenue of almost $400 million per year. If instead of cutting the business taxes, the state had, and the interest and dividends tax, the state had used $400 million for property tax relief, Nashua's tax levy would be reduced by more than 10%, or over $800 per year for the average homeowner. Now, critics say, and they'll say again, I'm sure, stop blaming the state of New Hampshire. To that I say, here in Nashua, we are taking many steps to save money in our city's operations. And Nashua has been lauded repeatedly, including earlier this year in 2025, as one of the best-run cities in the country based upon the efficiency and effectiveness of our city services. But 75% of the city budget is wages and benefits. So to make any significant cut in property taxes, the cost of labor must be cut, at best, by not filling vacancies due to attrition. In 2023, I and the Board of Aldermen worked together to deliver a budget which raised taxes by less than 1%, from 1807 to 1819. This year, in order to keep taxes down and spend the dollars necessary to buy necessary police cruisers, fire vehicles, and public works trucks, I have given our departments a guideline of a maximum 3% increase. Meeting this budget ceiling may affect core city services and could result in fewer employees across the city. As we wait for the New Hampshire Supreme Court to act on the state's appeal of the Conval decision, we will continue to urge the state legislature to step up and meet its constitutional responsibility to pay for an adequate education for each New Hampshire child. This reordering of priorities would bring tax cuts for hardworking Nashuans and guarantee every New Hampshire child the fundamental constitutional right of an adequate education. It's no secret that here in Nashua, affordable housing is hard to find, as well as across the state of New Hampshire. Demand for apartments and houses outstrips supply, and rents and home prices keep rising. Many people, young people in particular, cannot afford an apartment. And the median purchase price of a single family home in Nashua has now skyrocketed to over $500,000, a level that for many families is just too much. From the earliest days of this administration, my team and I have been keenly and ambitiously focused on meeting the challenge of affordable housing in Nashua. To date, we have exceeded our initial goal of significantly increasing new downtown housing by 500 units. We wanted not only to meet the need for new housing, but also to provide neighborhood support and patronage for our downtown businesses. Today, more than 1,000 units, much of it affordable, have been added to downtown. Over the past several years, we have achieved a real record of accomplishment on housing by encouraging, guiding, and fostering the development of a healthy mix of new affordable and market rate units in our city. Here are some highlights. We've been working with the Nashua Housing Authority on two big projects. We redeveloped the former Bronstein Apartments as the new Monahan Manor on Central Street with over 200 units of affordable housing. Looking to the future, we are planning to redevelop Maynard Homes on Burke Street to increase the supply of housing on that site with around 250 units, all of it affordable. Lofts 34, the mill to housing conversion on Franklin Street, has brought 200 fresh, new, modern apartments to the north bank of the Nashua River. The recently completed and quickly filled up High Street Flats has added 150 units of downtown housing just a half a block from Main Street. This private investment of $30 million plus is the largest from the ground up new apartment construction in Nashua's Central Business District in 125 years. The Marshall Street Apartments development at Marshall and East Hollis Streets has provided 150 units of affordable workforce housing on the east side of Nashua's downtown. Riverfront Landing near the Hudson Bridge has added 150 units of new market rate housing to our housing stock, and phase 2 to be completed soon will add another 150 units. The city worked closely with the respected nonprofit NeighborWorks to plan and build 46 new units of affordable housing on Main Street across from CVS, previously the site of a blighted parking lot. Looking ahead, 300 units of new housing, 20% affordable, will be built at NIMCO, a city-owned site in the Mill Yard. Construction of this long-planned project could start construction in 2026. We are also working with developers to add 75 units of affordable housing near the Merrimack River on Crown Street. And at the former Mohawk Tannery site, we are working with the EPA and private developers on a big project to clean up the tannery waste lagoons and to add 550 units of housing. We appointed a working group of staff and 3 aldermen: Mike O'Brien, Chair of the Infrastructure Committee; Mel Moran, Chair of the Planning and Economic Development Committee; and Ward 6 Alderman Chris Thibodeau, to interview the 4 developers who submitted proposals to convert the former Elm Street Middle School to 200 plus units of housing, again with 20% affordable. They have picked 2 finalists, and we are scheduling public presentations so that the community can provide its thinking regarding the redevelopment of this historic school site. Many staff members have contributed to our housing successes. I want to especially thank Matt Sullivan, Tim Cummings, Liz Hannum, Sam Durfee, and Cecilia Leonard. As I said last year, one of my biggest frustrations is that speculators have bought and are holding 2 big downtown parcels, which the planning board has permitted for a total of 600 units without actually building anything. And I want to mention one more big step we have taken on housing. Together with the Board of Aldermen, we created the Housing Trust Fund to stimulate the further development and supply of affordable apartments and homes for sale in Nashua and to mitigate the problem of homelessness in our city. We earmarked a $10 million contribution of the American Rescue Plan, ARPA funds, which Nashua received from the federal government for that trust fund. And we formed a policy-making citizen advisory committee to decide how the money from the trust should be spent. President Lori Wilshire, Alderwoman Shoshana Kelly, Reverend Christy Beseda, Bill Dolan, and Kyle Schneck are members of the advisory committee. The group decided to undertake its first project by using $350,000 to get at-risk families into housing. The Front Door Agency will educate potential tenants so that they are ready to rent, and then provide financial incentive such as security deposits, first month's rent, and or bonuses to participating landlords to make their apartments available. Homelessness is an increasingly evident challenge here in Nashua and across New Hampshire. Of course, the problem is related to the high cost of housing, but there are certainly other contributing causes. A shortage of funding for mental health services, a shortage of housing subsidies, and of course, substance abuse. Director of Public Health and Community Services, Bobby Bagley, and her team of community health workers are working hard to get to know every unhoused person in our city and help each person find a way forward. But every success is hard-won. We are now in the midst of a cold and snowy winter. In December, the city opened a new winter warming station at the Elm Street Middle School to provide nighttime protection from the cold. This is a backup to the overnight warming shelter operated by the Nashua Soup Kitchen at their Spring Street location. Each of these programs serves about 25 people per night. We are aware that this is not a perfect solution, and that many caring people in our community want to do more. So let's keep working on it. In the months ahead, I can promise you that Bobby and her team will continue to do a great job and work every day to help get people off the street and into productive lives. And I am grateful for everything they do. Turning to our infrastructure, we have achieved real results, beginning with the condition of our streets. In 2017, we embarked upon our paving plan of action. At that time, we were constantly getting complaints about the poor condition of our streets. Everywhere, we had streets that needed to be paved. Amherst Street, Concord Street, Kinsley Street, Main Street, and many, many neighborhood streets. We started by giving each street a paving condition index, or PCI, rating of 1 to 100. The average was 65. Since then, and after investing $7.5 million per year, and under the leadership of City Engineer Dan Hudson and Engineer Mark Saunders, we have paved or crack sealed 80% of our streets. Now, despite the natural deterioration which has occurred since 2017, we have raised the average PCI to 85. We don't get as many complaints about our streets anymore. There are potholes, and we do hear about them, but overall, the condition of our streets is much, much better. We have also undertaken a 20-year improvement plan at the sewage treatment plant, which is now 40 years old. Given the flow of 11 million gallons per day, this facility is always subject to wear and tear. We are also constantly replacing and relining the sewer pipes below the street, some of them over 100 years old, at the rate of 10 to 15,000 linear feet each year. Our Public Works garage on Riverside Drive is going on 50 years old, and it no longer serves the needs of our Public Works Department. Public Works Director Lisa Foto and her team, Andy Patrician, John Ibarra, Matt LeBlanc, Brian Conant, and our city engineers, and many others, need a better facility to house the workforce and the equipment with which they provide basic city services: garbage collection, snow plowing, street and sewer repair, and parks maintenance. And the inadequate size of the current garage means that Public Works is keeping a lot of the valuable equipment outside, subject to deterioration caused by the weather. Therefore, we are building a new public works facility at the Four Hills landfill. We have already finished the offices and the new garage is now in design. When completed, this facility will provide a base of operation for all our DPW services. And once the DPW leaves Riverside Drive, there will be room for the Conway Arena to expand to 2 hockey rinks if they wish to. Downtown Nashua. Main Street, the riverfront, the nearby residential neighborhoods, is the heart of our city and contributes to our unique identity. It is where our community gathers for entertainment, dining, celebrating, and shopping. A re-energized and revitalized downtown is critical to the quality of life we offer and is essential to Nashua's overall success. A top goal of this administration is the cultivation of an arts, cultural, and residential neighborhood in our center city. And that's why downtown has always been a major focus. Now, as we envisioned, the Nashua Center for the Arts is stimulating the development of a stronger, more vibrant downtown. Take a look at the variety of new restaurants, cafes, and eateries, and other businesses that have joined the scene near the NCA. On West Pearl Street, Empanelli's first appeared upon the scene with Puerto Rican empanadas, hot-pressed sandwiches, and locos. And Cole Morgan is welcoming the community at his cafe, Coffee and Kindness. Very recently, veteran restaurateur Elisa Drift opened local street eats, and a new Thai place, Pun Thai, opened on the street. Around the corner on Elm, a breakfast and brunch place, the Yoke Grill, moved in a year ago and is thriving. Across Main Street from the NCA, Jeff and Leslie Bois opened a new major restaurant, the Union Public House, offering modern American cuisine. And around the corner on East Pearl, they have given us the Pearl at Stella Blue, a small and cozy addition with high-end snacks and cocktails. Aside from all these new places to eat, there is other new and significant economic activity around the Performing Arts Center. Shaheen and Gordon, one of New Hampshire's premier law firms, opened a Nashua office at 191 Main Street, right across Pearl. They remodeled the old Bank of New Hampshire and added $1 million of assessed value to their building. Back on West Pearl, and next to the NCA, Amber Morgan bought the Fortin Gage floral business, and she has made it her own. Be sure to check out her beautiful street-level storefront windows. Jomi's Barbershop opened in 2024 right next to Martha's on Main Street. And located a stone's throw away, the High Street Lofts, which pays over $300,000 in annual property taxes and $90,000 a year in parking fees, would never have been built without our commitment to the Nashua Center for the Arts, according to that developer. Turning to our parks, green spaces, and conservation lands, precious assets which we all own together, these beloved spaces are essential to the quality of life in our community. Our people flock to our parks for gathering and entertainment, exercise, sports, and recreation, for quiet and relaxation. Last year, 60,000 people visited Mine Falls Park, 60,000 visited Roby Park, and 90,000 visited Greeley Park. Downtown, our Nashua Riverfront Park will open later this year. For those who love our namesake river, this project will include the installation of suspended walkways and riverside pathways, redesigned landscaping, new lighting, and a public pavilion. Thanks to Liz Hannum and Amy DeRoche for bringing this project from concept to reality. We will also install a splash pad at Park Social located at the corner of Pine and Central Street, across from Monahan Manor. This new amenity will provide the kids from the Tree Streets with a fun place to get cool in the hot summer months. Also in the wings is the eagerly awaited Library Plaza renovation project. Thanks to Senator Jean Shaheen and retired Congresswoman Annie Custer for getting us the $3 million in congressionally directed spending for this project, which will bring new lawns, trees, and a children's playground to our downtown. But we must always be focused on the well-being and success of Nashua's children. I believe that the city has a responsibility to provide an excellent education for every child at every school every day. Educational excellence in our schools is critical to the city's future, as well as an important aspect of the city's economic development blueprint. This past year, working with Alderman Rick Dowd and the Joint Special School Building Committee, we finished our middle school redesign and upgrade project. The project provides our 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students one of the best middle school educations of any district in the state. We first renovated Fairgrounds and Pennachuck Middle Schools, and this past August, we opened the brand new, state-of-the-art Brian McCarthy Middle School in the South End. All 3 schools are now equipped with 21st century technology. All 3 are powered by solar energy, and all 3 include athletic fields. Before I conclude, I want to thank our 2,800 city employees who make Nashua a great city. Our teachers who help our kids learn to read and compute, think and analyze. Our first responders, police officers and firefighters who answer the call 24 hours a day to keep our city safe. Our public works employees who fix, patch, and plow our streets, who collect the trash and recycling, and who plow our streets. And the staff members who work in City Hall, the library, and the health department. I want to particularly thank my own staff, Chief of Staff Megan Karen, Kath Palmer, and Emily Vassar. I also want to thank Vicki for her love and support. So together, let's look forward to more progress for our city in 2025. We are in uncertain times, but by working together with the Board of Aldermen, with our boards and commissions, with our many nonprofits and volunteers, with our business community, we can build an even greater Nashua. Thank you very much.
Alderwoman Kelly.
Move to adjourn.
Motion is to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned at 7:39 PM. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.